So my boyfriend looks me dead in the eye and asks, if I were dying, would you quit your job to be with me? Meanwhile, I'm secretly planning a 2-week trip to Europe to see my mom. And here's the weird part. His mom is the one who claims she's dying. Except, no hospital will confirm it, no diagnosis, nothing. And wait, it gets so much stranger. Okay, so let me back up a little because this whole thing is a mess. Tanya, that's the boyfriend's mom, starts claiming she's dying of cancer. But here's the thing, no diagnosis, like at all. She's going to the ER constantly, and every single time they send her home. A nurse actually pulled the boyfriend aside and straight up said, hey, she might be faking this. That's a medical professional saying that. Red flag number one, right? But then she stays over at their apartment. Just one night, supposedly, turned into a whole week of absolute chaos. And I need you to picture this. She refuses to use the AC or any fans because, and I quote, they hurt her skin. But then she's blow-drying her hair every single day. You see the contradiction there? Yeah. The apartment starts smelling terrible because, no air circulation. Everything has to be dark and silent. She's constantly demanding help with stuff. And then, wait for it, she storms into their bedroom at 3 o'clock in the morning, asking for massages from her son. They sleep naked, by the way, so that was, super awkward, doesn't even cover it. She also notices they have some Buddhist souvenirs from their travels, and she hates them, demands they hang up crosses instead. So they do. And she still complains non-stop. Nothing is good enough. She even suggests they move in with her, which is an hour away from their jobs and school. The boyfriend works full-time, by the way, and Op is a full-time student with 2 jobs and a 4 GPA. She's already falling behind just from this 1 week. But here's where it gets really suspicious. The health updates keep shifting. First, there's an MRI that gets cancelled. Then chemo gets postponed because of an infection. Then she has E. coli. Every time it's a new reason. No clear diagnosis. No paperwork. Nothing you'd expect from someone who's actually, dying. The boyfriend's stepdad, David, who's apparently funding her entire lifestyle, even know most of what's happening. When he's away, Tanya makes them drive to her house to get her jewelry because she thinks David is going to steal it when she dies. She claims he's an alcoholic. They're supposed to take her to the ER right after grabbing the jewelry, but instead they end up staying for 16 hours. 16 hours doing chores. Op ends up folding 420 clothing items. 420. She cleans the entire house. She says she felt like an unpaid maid. And get this, not a single please or thank you. Nothing. Tanya is just stalling, avoiding the ER. When they finally get there at 5 in the morning, she says she'll check herself in and sends them home. 3 hours later, she's calling again, sobbing for help because the ER rejected her. Again. At this point, Op is pretty convinced she's faking it. And honestly, I'm right there with her. Both Op and her boyfriend are skipping meals, losing sleep, falling behind at work and school. The boyfriend once said he's basically waiting for his mom to pass away so they can finally move to Europe. That's how drained he is. He's been forced to manage her divorce, attend lawyer meetings, even help with funeral prep. For someone who might not even be sick. Meanwhile, David, again, the stepdad who's paying the hospital bills, finally catches wind of what's happening. He sends the boyfriend aggressive texts like "I call BS" and "don't show up at my house no more." Then later he apologizes, but the damage is done. Tanya calls again, begging for help. But this time she specifically wants Op, because David is supposedly jealous of the boyfriend. And here's the thing, Op has final exams that weekend. She told the boyfriend she needs to study. Going to that house alone just feels sketchy. But she's also planning a trip to Europe to see her mom for the first time in over a year. 2 to 3 weeks, just to visit family. The boyfriend says he supports it, then in the same breath calls it a little selfish. And then he hits her with that hypothetical. If you were dying, would you quit your job to be with me? If it were your mom, would you help her? Op felt pressured to say yes. But the truth is, her family wouldn't lie to her or use her like this. That's the difference. She loves him. She wants to be there for him, but she does not trust his mom. and this whole situation is starting to destroy their relationship. So the question is she the a-hole for refusing to help Tanya and going to Europe? Honestly, no. The way the story is presented, everything points to Tanya faking it. Unless she has a clear diagnosis, why keep going to the ER over and over? The writing is on the wall. The boyfriend just refuses to read it. Why not take Tanya to a specialist? Get her properly diagnosed. I'm pretty sure she'd fight them tooth and nail to avoid that. And that alone should be proof. Between Op and her boyfriend, who's being selfish? Honestly, it's him. That whole hypothetical he posed is absolute BS because, like she said, her mom wouldn't lie to her like that. Not like Tanya. So no, Op is not the a-hole. And the comments section pretty much agreed. So let's talk more about that hypothetical question the boyfriend asked, because honestly, it says everything. He looks at Op and goes, "If you were dying, would you quit your job to be with me? And if it were your mom, would you help her?" And on the surface, right, that sounds reasonable. Like, of course, you'd want your partner there if you're dying. But here's the thing Op realized. Her family wouldn't lie to her. They wouldn't manipulate her. They wouldn't use her like a free maid and emotional punching bag. So the question itself is kind of unfair, because she's not saying she wouldn't support her dying loved one. She's saying she doesn't believe Tanya is actually dying. And there's a massive difference there. The boyfriend, he's in denial. Op brought up once that his mom might be manipulating him, and he said, "That's a bit harsh." But then when she asked if he's ever been manipulated by his mom before, he said, "Oh, definitely. She's the biggest manipulator." Wait, what? So he knows she's manipulative, but somehow this time it's different because she's actually sick, even though there's still no diagnosis. Yeah, denial. The community comments really dug into this. One person said Op is not the a-hole, and then added, "I know you love your boyfriend, but you need to ask yourself if you're willing to give up your own life for him and his mom, because it's never going to stop. It could stop if he chooses to set boundaries, but it doesn't sound like he'll do that." And Op responded that he's assured her multiple times she's his priority, and if she told him to stay home from the hospital, he would. But she only asks when his own health is suffering. Then she dropped this detail that really shows how deep the manipulation goes. Every time the boyfriend tries to leave the hospital, his mom falls to her knees, like literally drops to the floor, and she says stuff like, "God will bless you more if you stay. This is our last meal together." Or, "I have no one, I'm all alone." Can you imagine? That's not someone who's just sick. That's someone who knows exactly which buttons to push. Another commenter suggested Tanya needs therapy. They said, "No one has that many issues and gets rejected from an ER or has important procedures cancelled and not rescheduled for as soon as possible." She's using this as manipulation. Your lives will be permanently on hold until this is dealt with or contact is cut. And Op agreed. That's what she's been worried about since day one. But here's the problem. The boyfriend is strictly against therapy, for himself or anyone else. Op has suggested it to him before for his own issues, and he refuses to even consider it. So suggesting it for his mom, probably not happening. Then there's the guilt trip cycle. And this part is just wild. The boyfriend asked Op to come to the hospital with him to give him a reason to leave early. So they try to explain to Tanya that they have an appointment elsewhere, and she just cuts them off mid-sentence and says, "Just go then." No interest in an explanation. The boyfriend says, "Bye, Mom, I love you." And she snaps back, "Actions speak louder than words. Don't call me anymore." Cold, right? But then, 2 hours later, she calls him, begging him to come back, like nothing happened. That's textbook manipulation. Push them away to make them feel guilty, then pull them back in. And it's working because he keeps going back. Another comment told Op she should just go visit her mom and say her mom needs help just as much as Tanya needs the boyfriend. And honestly, that's not even a lie. Her mom hasn't seen her in over a year. She deserves time with her daughter. And the commenter pointed out, if Tanya hasn't been diagnosed with anything serious, she's unlikely to die in the 2 weeks Op is gone. Obviously, anything could happen to anyone, but the probability is pretty low. Op responded that if her mom did die while she was overseas, she'd fly back immediately to support her boyfriend. No question. But she just can't stay here, tending to Tanya during her summer break, getting guilt-tripped every single day when she could be spending time with her own family. She said it feels selfish, but she hasn't seen her family in a year, and she wishes her boyfriend could just come with her. He said he totally would if he had any paid time off left, but he used it all on his mom. That's the heartbreaking part. He's burning through his own life, his job, his savings, his mental health, for someone who might not even be sick. And Op is left watching it happen, trying to protect herself and her own future. One comment summed it up perfectly. Why is his family more important than yours? So despite all of this, Op stood her ground. She took the advice from the comments and went to Europe for 3 weeks to see her family. And the boyfriend's reaction. Intense doesn't even begin to cover it. He called her incredibly selfish, like multiple times. He kept finding new reasons why she shouldn't go, but she held firm. She had a serious conversation with him about feeling manipulated and guilt-tripped, and that's when things escalated. Meltdown mode, full on. He starts throwing out threats. Book your ticket right now. I can and I will. I can break up if I want to, just like that. Then he drives off, and then he breaks down, sobbing like she'd never seen before. And look, here's the thing. He says he doesn't mean to manipulate her. He says it hurts to hear her say she feels manipulated when all he's asking is for her to be there for him. And honestly, I get both sides here. If my mom was sick, even if I wasn't sure if she was faking, I'd want my partner's comfort too. So Op understood his need for support. She doesn't excuse his behavior, the threats, the guilt-tripping, but she gets where it's coming from. Then the whiplash. He calms down, he apologizes, and he becomes affectionate, like noticeably more affectionate. He ends up supporting her decision to leave. While she's in Europe with her family, he texts her saying how happy he is for her. She felt great over there, cherishing every moment with her mom. Didn't miss America at all, and honestly good for her. She needed that break, so 3 weeks pass. She comes back to the airport, and guess who's there with a welcome home cake? Yep, the boyfriend, with a cake. That's sweet, right? Like he clearly loves her. He's trying. But this whole situation is so messy. They have a talk about the mom situation, and he kindly asks her to be more supportive, specifically to come to the hospital with him more often. She agrees. She wants to help. She wants to be there for him. But here's what's interesting. While Op was gone, Tanya was still doing her thing, calling the boyfriend day and night, guilt-tripping him non-stop. She was extremely dependent on him for weeks, and eventually, he refused to help her anymore, just hit a wall and stopped. She cut ties briefly, but they reconnected. Still, his involvement dropped way down after that. Then Tanya's sister flew in from California to help out. Couldn't handle Tanya's crazy demands, so she left. Then a niece came to help. Lasted 3 days. 3 days. That tells you everything, right? Multiple family members tried to step in and couldn't handle it. Meanwhile, Tanya actually had surgery. Started chemo. She's getting thinner, losing her hair. There's another surgery scheduled to remove a mass. And here's the part where Op admits something huge. A nurse at the hospital said to the boyfriend, and Op witnessed this. Glad you're visiting your mom. Cancer can be so tough. Wait, so the nurse is acknowledging cancer. Real cancer. Op says, and I'm quoting here, I don't think Tanya is faking anymore. I am the a-hole for being unsupportive. That's a big admission. She was wrong. Tanya actually is sick. But, and here's where it gets complicated again. Even with real cancer, Tanya's manipulation didn't stop. The sister leaving, the niece lasting 3 days, the constant guilt trips, the emotional roller coaster. That's still happening. The cancer is real, but so is the manipulation. Both things can be true at the same time. Op has been better at standing her ground since returning from Europe. She's learned how to say no. She's prioritizing her grades and her family over Tanya's odd demands, while still balancing quality time with her boyfriend. She shows sympathy. She texts Tanya here and there, but she agrees with the Reddit comments. It's not her job to treat or nurse Tanya or spend her weekends doing chores for her. That's a healthy boundary. Finally, oh, and some other updates. Tanya didn't get divorced. She needs David to pay her medical bills, but she still tells people he's a rude alcoholic who's waiting for her to die. The boyfriend quit his job. It was just too much on top of everything. But his mood is way better now. He's healing mentally and treating Op better too. She supports his unemployment for now because he's working on projects and has savings. If the savings run out, he'll have to work again. But for now, they're managing. So, yeah, Tanya wasn't faking. Op admits she was wrong, but the manipulation never stopped, and the boyfriend still can't fully see it. So here's the part that really messes with your head. Tanya actually had surgery, started chemo. She's getting thinner, losing her hair. There's another surgery scheduled to get a mass removed. And remember that nurse at the hospital, the one who suggested Tanya might be faking earlier? Well, later on, Op witnessed that same nurse say to the boyfriend, "I'm glad you're visiting your mom. Cancer can be so tough." Wait, so the nurse is now acknowledging real cancer. The medical professional who once doubted her is now treating her like an actual cancer patient. Op says, and I'm quoting directly here, "I don't think Tanya is faking anymore. I am the a-hole for being unsupportive." That's a huge admission. She was wrong, dead wrong. Tanya really is sick, but here's the thing, and this is where it gets complicated. Even with real cancer, Tanya's manipulation didn't stop at all. Think about this. Her sister flew all the way from California to help out, flew across the country, and she couldn't take it. She left. Then a niece came to help. Lasted 3 days. 3 days. Multiple family members tried to step in, and both of them bounced pretty quickly. That tells you everything, right? The cancer is real, but so is the impossible behavior, the constant demands, the guilt trips, the emotional exhaustion. Both things can be true at the same time. She can be genuinely sick and also be genuinely manipulative. Those aren't mutually exclusive. But the boyfriend, he still can't see the manipulation clearly. Op brought up once that what his mom is doing is manipulation, and he said that's a bit harsh. Then she asked if he thinks he's ever been manipulated by his mom before, and he straight up said, "Oh, definitely. She's the biggest manipulator." But then he added, "This is different because she's actually sick, so she just really needs me to be with her." See the mental gymnastics there. He knows she's a manipulator, he admits it, but somehow, because there's now a real diagnosis, the manipulation gets a pass. Like cancer erases decades of behavioral patterns, that's not how it works. Op starts to wonder, is she the crazy one? Is she wrong about everything? She says, unless I'm the crazy one and she really is sick, I'd owe the world an apology. But here's the thing, she's not crazy. She was wrong about the faking part, that's true, but she wasn't wrong about the manipulation. The sister and niece proving that by bailing out just confirms it. And honestly, the boyfriend quitting his job because his mom's demands were too much, the family members flying in and then leaving within days, the constant emotional roller coaster of "don't call me anymore," followed by begging 2 hours later. That's not just cancer. That's cancer plus something else. Op says she's better at standing her ground now. She's learned how to say no. She shows sympathy for Tanya, texts her here and there, but she's not doing the chores, not being the unpaid maid, not sacrificing her grades or her own family time. She agreed to be more supportive at the hospital, and she is, but she's also protecting her boundaries. That's probably the healthiest outcome possible in this mess. She admitted she was wrong about the faking, but she's not letting that admission turn into an excuse for everything else. And the boyfriend, he's healing. His mood is better since quitting his job. He's treating Op better too, but he still can't see that his mom is manipulating him even now, even with the diagnosis, even with the chemo and the hair loss and the surgeries. Sometimes people just can't see what's right in front of them, especially when it's their own mom. All right, so that was one wild story. But here's another one that's completely different and honestly just as frustrating. This one's from a 24-year-old woman who's babysitting for her in-laws. They have a 3-year-old daughter. She also has her own son who's just under 2, so she has to bring him with her every time she babysits. Sounds manageable at first, right? She started back in September when her son was still a baby and slept a lot. She could handle both kids, but then things changed. The father-in-law is a firefighter on a revolving schedule. So the days she's needed change from week to week. Anywhere from 2 to 4 days a week, from 7 in the morning until 4:15 in the afternoon. That's a full day. The sister-in-law also started part-time preschool, Monday through Wednesday, from about 8:45 to 11:25 in the morning. And here's the problem. Her son is getting older. He has different needs now, a different schedule, and she's trying to juggle preschool drop-offs and pickups, naps for both kids, her own house responsibilities, and honestly, it's just not working. She's often shaking her son's leg on the car ride home to keep him awake, because if their naps don't line up, neither one of them sleeps, and that is terrible for everyone involved. Screaming toddlers, exhausted mom, no downtime. Her husband is an EMT who works 3 days a week from noon to 2 in the morning. Sometimes they have to leave before their son even gets to see his dad in the morning. So father and son don't see each other for days at a time. So she and her husband sit down and do the math. And here's the crazy part. If her husband picks up just 2 overtime shifts a month, he makes more money than she does working a full month for her in-laws. 2 shifts, that's it. Meanwhile, the in-laws are much better off financially. All 3 of their daughters are in private school. They go on multiple vacations a year. They drive brand new cars. So this isn't about them needing the money. This is about convenience. So she goes to her mother-in-law on Monday and says she needs to quit. They have a long conversation about why. She explains it's affecting her mental health, her marriage, her whole family. The mother-in-law asks her to think about some concerns, like what they'll do if something big happens financially, how she'll get mental health help, how her husband picking up overtime will affect their marriage. Reasonable questions on the surface, but also kind of not her problem. She agrees to think about it. She does research. She finds an affordable counseling company. She figures out the overtime math. She comes back with answers to all their concerns. And the in-laws, they looked into one option, just one. And then they said they were hoping to compromise. The conversation goes back and forth, sometimes hurtful, sometimes focused. They say she's hanging them out to dry, even though she said she'd stay until they find someone else. They say she's disrespecting them by asking to leave. They say she's putting their daughter's well-being on the back burner. They say she's not thinking about how this affects them, and she has a full panic attack on their couch, sobbing, telling them she's sorry. She really thought she could do it, but she feels like she's burying herself. She doesn't even feel like a person anymore. She just wants to be home with her family. And honestly, that's heartbreaking. She shouldn't have to beg to quit a job that's destroying her mental health, especially for family, especially when they can easily afford to hire someone else. But here's the thing she realized later. She doesn't need their permission to quit at all. So here's the kicker. After all that, the panic attack, the guilt, the horrible conversation, her in-laws found a replacement in 3 days. 3 days, that's it. Which honestly just makes everything they put her through feel even more unnecessary. But hey, she's done. Thank the Lord, right? She and her husband are taking a big step back from the in-laws. Healthy boundaries. Okay, I need to end on something that doesn't make us all angry. So here's a quick mood booster from the malicious compliance subreddit. Someone was doing training 3 hours from home. The night before a 7 a.m. class at 9 p.m., they get a text. You need a collared shirt tomorrow, 3 hours from home, at 9 at night. So they go to Target, irritated, and think, I'm gonna be spiteful. Hawaiian shirt. They show up the next morning, take off their jacket, look their boss dead in the eye and say, be careful what you ask for. Everyone laughed. The students loved it. And that's how they ended up with a Lilo and Stitch Hawaiian shirt. Sometimes you just gotta have fun with it, right? Hey, if you made it this far, you clearly like these stories. So I've got a couple more lined up for you. Maybe watch one now, or save them for later when you need a break. Seriously, thanks for hanging out with me. And hey, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It really helps, and I'd love to have you around for the next one.